So, wow, dang, as soon as I start talking, it's attack my throat chakra. But anyway, I'm making this video because in the video about um, basically addressing accusations of the divine feminine doing love spells on a masculine, okay? Um, there was a lot that came out in that video, um, like a lot of revelation outside of that, okay? In regard to the names you see mentioned in the caption. And when I say I was just so like irritable about that video having no volume, like for those of you who seen it up for a moment, that video was an hour and 55 minutes. 155. Okay, heavy emphasis on 55, 55, change. Okay, a shift. And that video was also filmed on January 1st, right? But without further ado, I'm being guided to talk about this through the understanding and the way that God showed it, to my eyes. Okay. So let's start with the story of in heaven, right? Y'all can even consider this a story time, like biblical, revelational story time, right? So let's talk about Lucifer. Okay, let's talk about the battle between Lucifer and Archangel Michael, who are brothers. Let's talk about how Lucifer is God's child, right? Let's talk about it, right? So, for those of you who are familiar with the story, you know that Lucifer was like the musician of all musicians, okay? Um, and we understand that with frequency, with music, um, music with words, but music alone, frequency, like consider like sound frequency and meditation that involve like humming and but sound, right? That within itself is one of the most powerful phenomena in life. Sound, right? Music, frequency. Okay. With that being said, God loves us enough to equip all of us with gifts and abilities and talents, basically aspects of himself. It's kind of like how when you think about a mother, father, and a child, and how, let's say, the patriarchal bloodline has particular gifts, or inclination of gifts and talents, or the matriarchal, has particular gifts and, let's say, maybe your grandmother, your mother, your on your mother's side, they're dreamers. They have prophetic dreams. Let's say on your father's side, there's a lot of musicians. Okay, a lot of talent of dancing, like just natural ability of good dancing and creativity and stuff like that, right? Um, so this is how it is with God and us, God and God's children, because as of now, we understand that not everybody is a child of God. There are people who are children of Satan, right? But we'll double back to that. But the point is, God had distributed all these different gifts, abilities, and talents amongst all his children, all the angels, in heaven. God created the world and created life itself to basically share of himself, create joy, create all the fruits of the spirit, okay? And God intended the best for us, um which is when we can go back to scriptures that say a predestined path, a predestinated path, and I've known you before you enter your mother's womb, all these things, but God's intention for us were pure, good, holy, righteous, right? However, with that being said, God is respectful of us as well, hence free will, right? So we all have free will. We all have freedom of choice, okay? We all have the authority to govern ourselves, to conduct ourselves, right? And that's just out of, respect and sanity, because, why create all these beings and these creatures if you're just going to control them like a video game? You get what I'm saying? That's far from the personality, identity, and purpose and intention of the Most High God for us. Hence why the opposite of that would be possession, right? When people get possessed. That's Satan's manner of doing things. A lot of times when you hear of a person being possessed by something, overtaken, there's someone else driving the person's vessel, okay? Something has overthrown that person's soul, that person's mind and spirit, that person's willpower, and whatever that is, entity, demon, spirits, whatever is controlling that person, okay? Um, so yeah, that forceful energy, that's associated with Satan. Okay, so let's go back to, okay, so boom, we're in heaven, with Satan being, so talented, with his ability to orchestrate, music and fine tuning and all these things. Imagine a person understanding that they have the power to move people. You know how music can move people, music can influence people's behavior, right? Depending on like the intention of the song, the intention of the frequencies, whatever, it has the ability to influence behavior. So think of the Pied Piper in the Shrek movie, right? 1122. In the Shrek movie, Shrek Forever After, with Rumpelstiltskin, how he hired um, the Pied Piper in order to control these ogres, right? This Pied Piper could also control the witches. Basically he had this flute where he can just change the setting to whatever creature or being, spirit or whatever, and play a tune that would influence them to do whatever he want, right? To control their willpower, okay? Control their vessels. So y'all know ogres, in that movie were very strong, very war ready, warriorhood, but there was a lot of unity and family love and passion and togetherness. You get what I'm saying? Uh so with that being said, with the music, they this, demented being was able to influence their behavior, which otherwise they would be going to war. They would be fighting against their enemy and all of that. But because they was under the influence of music, he was able to make them dance uncontrollably, right? So with that being said, music has the power to kind of take control over beings, over creatures, okay? um, energy, energetic beings. So that's a lot of power when you think about it, okay? Because we're all energetic. You know how with animals, like there's a communication, a universal communication amongst all living creatures, including plants and trees and elements and water. Like you can look at studies of water, and when you speak affirmations or play like high vibrational or balanced vibrational frequency with music, opposed to low vibrational or toxic lyrical culture music with water, how it affects the crystallization of the water, right? Same experiment with the plants. You know how you can speak negative like insults and just horrible things like to a plant, and positive affirmations and uplifting words to a plant. These plants could be under the same physical conditions, but the determining factor is the frequency, the energy that's being projected onto the plants, and how in that experiment, the plant that was spoken a lot of insults to died or began to wither away, even though it had the same conditions, the same ingredients, everything, as your plant that was spoken with love, or love was spoken into this plant and positive affirmations, and that plant flourished. The point is, you know, pay attention to the world around you and the repetitive patterns of human nature. So think about the music industry. Think about anybody who um, gain some type of power with something that they do. They invented some type of talent, gift, abilities, skills, whatever. And those individuals who maintain discipline and self-respect and respect of others, integrity, as well as those individuals who allow themselves to become basically egomaniacs and stuff, narcissistic and all these things when it comes to power and authority, and how they abuse that with other people, right, for control. And it gives them this false sense of power. Now, heavy emphasis on false sense of power. So you're in heaven, you're seeing how you're able to influence all these powerful beings, all these angels. We're talking about angels and archangels. You're seeing how you're able to move, these angels and all of that. And there's a lot of conversation biblically about how the angels would praise God. When you think about praise and worship, and how music is normally involved with praise and worship, and how music can even like um emphasize the passion, the emotion, and all of that, right? So you're able to orchestrate and create music and praises and worship to drive a whole community of powerful, divine, angelic beings to worship and singing and praying and speaking in divine tongues and emotional, movement and all that towards the Most High God, right? You understand that you have an inclination of doing that. So when you think about the opposite of that, let's get into Satan's perspective, right? Because this is is not hard to understand a process. So with him witnessing how he's able to steer people toward God with his music, whenever that pride and that false sense of power begin to like swell in his head, he's looking at it like, well, if I can, generate music to cause people to move closer to God, I can also generate music to cause people to move away from God, to turn away from God and follow me. And it's, he got into this arrogant space of like, look how powerful I am. Like, why should I have to listen to you? Why should I have to um like, I'm not like these regular angels. Like, look what I'm able to do. You know what I'm saying? I'm not just anybody. Like who are you to, you know, put me beneath you? Like, I'm just as powerful as you are, right? Totally forgetting that, you know, totally forgetting that he was given this talent, these gifts and abilities from the Most High. So if anybody is the most powerful when it comes to music, it is the giver of gifts. It's the creator of music itself, the creator of sound. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. Okay, when you think about words, you're thinking about speaking, talking, sound. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, right? So, but this delusion and illusionary energy starts to come in. The desires of his heart and this polluted perspective that Satan developed. You get what I'm saying? Like, by thinking, hey, I'm just as powerful as you. Like, who are you? And so, with this false sense of power, he rallies up. He uses his influence, right, to work against God. In adversarial means. And with music being so powerful and so influential, okay, it's literally spiritual and energetic, like its impact on people. Again, let's go back to Shrek Forever After with the ogres and with the witches, and how certain music that's attuned to their energy was strong enough to overpower their free will. You get what I'm saying? So let's look at it from that lens. With that being said, okay, cool. So he's able to rally up a few individuals to basically follow him and turn against God along with him, right? And so they create this whole war in heaven, this uproar in heaven, and the purpose of the war, the uproar, is to overthrow God himself. And it's an impossible task. It's an impossible quest, because how can you overthrow the creator? You get what I'm saying? So now he's in this energy of the thief. He's in this energy of Judas. He's in this energy of Cain, right? Now Archangel Michael being, like um very, very precious to God. That's why you have angels and then you have archangels. Okay. So Michael was kind of in that shepherd position when it comes to his family. You know what I'm saying? Like his brothers and sisters. You know what I'm saying? He was like big bro, big brother energy. You get what I'm saying? Like Michael, you can think of Archangel Michael as who was it? Was it David? You can think of David, like David and Goliath, and um how he was able to overcome or survive lions and all these other quote unquote ferocious beings or creatures, right? Or creatures that have the ability to like really go wild and possibly consume a human, right? um what's another example? But yeah, let's just think about the shepherd. Let's think about the shepherd boy and the responsibility of the shepherd boy, how he has to protect the sheep, okay, from ravenous creatures like wolves and stuff like that, right? So this is Archangel Michael's energy, right? So the reason why we see this energy like constantly repeat, because it started with Satan. It started, the original story of Cain and Abel began with Lucifer and Archangel Michael, right? So here's the thing. What I love about Proverbs is all the wisdom that Solomon was endowed with, and how before he became king, one of his prayers to the divine was to have understanding of other people's hearts so that he may will judgment righteously, right? And so God, blessed him not only with wisdom for such a humble prayer and request, but he blessed him with like riches and wealth and all these other things that would secure his livelihood, right? Okay, so in Proverbs, we're very familiar with the scripture that talks about pride before a great fall. So where did pride originate, right? Where did pride originate or influctuate and became haughtiness? And where was the first fall? The first fall, symbolically or realistically, because not everybody believes in these stories on a literal sense. However, we still going to address the symbolic meaning, because if you cannot deny the symbolic reference and meaning and repetitive patterns that we see amongst humankind, right? So they created this uproar in heaven. So the energy is given like one bad apple can spoil the whole bunch. Lucifer began to spread himself like a wildfire. You get what I'm saying? So it's this idea of trying to possess as many of God's children, or as many vessels as possible, under this precept or concept that if I can collect more vessels than you, that makes me more powerful than you. Hence why one vessel of God's spirit is more powerful than a group, a coven, a community of individuals that may rise against that one being. Hence David and Goliath, right? Goliath was a giant. You get what I'm saying? And there was a whole war of man who all feared Goliath, and David, with him being younger than these men in battle, with him being smaller in stature, because he was endowed with the Spirit of God, he, without fear was able to defeat Goliath, and it didn't even require much. Why? Because all the power came in the fact that his faith was rooted and grounded in God. He was a vessel of the Spirit of God, right? So it don't take much for God to do a lot. You get what I'm saying? Opposed to how Satan operates, right? So you can think about people who indulge in spell work, witchcraft, or abusing spell work, witchcraft, sorcery, and all these steps that they gotta do, and the consistency required, and all these ingredients, and all these people that they rally up for power and harvesting and harnessing energy. It's a lot. You get what I'm saying? Like, they gotta do a lot just to overcome somebody who is endowed with divine spirit or anointing. So boom. So keep in mind, Lucifer is still God's child, right? But being that God gave everybody free will, you get what I'm saying? Like, that's literally like God saying, I trust you with, I trust you, or I'm giving you a level of trust with how you conduct yourself. I'm going to give you guidance and, instruction. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to give you avenues to be edified by me. I'm going to make the word available to you. I'm going to make myself always indefinitely available to you. You get what I'm saying? But, I'm not here to like be your warden or anything. I'm here if you need me. I'm here if you're open to me. Hence, my will to thy will scripture. Okay, so messages that was coming out in that reading, when I said my will to thy will in regards to God's will, like you by choice choosing to align your will with God's will, right? You know how Jay-Z had this whole thing where there was a shirt or something, this quote he was promoting, when he basically kind of changed the words of that my will to thy will thing, like in this adversarial like expression, right? So follow me, you guys. So what must God do in this situation? Okay, being that he created these beings, he created an environment where they won't have to want for anything, need for anything. They have everything they need. You get what I'm saying? Like, and so it wasn't that the praise and worship was forced. The praise and worship was like kind of like, it was natural, it was organic, because God loved them so much that he provided, assured security. They didn't have to worry about food, lack of love. Okay, they didn't have to worry about being harmed or mistreated or abused. God takes really good care of his own. You get what I'm saying? And so that natural praise and worship, so that natural love, you get what I'm saying? Like, it's like love languages. You know how if somebody meets falls in love with somebody, you get what I'm saying, or somebody who loves their mom, like they have a good parent, they have good moms or good guardians, like good teachers, good friends, like you naturally want to do kind gestures, and you naturally want to show your gratitude and appreciation to these people. Like, you want to praise them, you want to cherish them, honor them, right? So this is the energy that God attracts because of the love, the unconditional love and grace and compassion and mercy, that's just everlasting, that he just pours like an unending fountain. You get what I'm saying? And then not only does he give you guaranteed security and, abundance and all these things, but he also gives you like creativity. He gives you very significant aspects of himself so that you can create your own things. You can produce things on your own. You can create your own ideas and inventions and your own children. You get to experience what God gets to experience by creating us, by giving birth to us. You get what I'm saying? Like, with that being said, though, let's go back to Lucifer and his delusion. You get what I'm saying? I'm gonna take my time with this message. Okay, so let's go back to Lucifer. So boom, one bad apple spoils the bunch, or has the potential. So this is somebody who's trying to spread themselves like wildfire amongst people who are on the path of divinity or in alignment with God. You get what I'm saying? Or their hearts are still pure. Okay. Now, why did he have to get banished from heaven? The obvious reason that he had to be banished from heaven, along with the other rejects, or those who basically rejected God. See, here's the thing. They rejected God. They rejected peace. They rejected harmony. They rejected balance. They rejected the blessings. They rejected, the blessings of God. They rejected the covenant, right? And to prevent them from polluting the hearts of the other angels and, archangels, which God definitely gave us all power. He made us like we're reflections of God. You get what I'm saying? He knows how powerful we are. Like, why would he want us to be powerless? That makes no sense. Why would he make us powerless? Hence why he, considers us fearfully and wonderfully made, right? So understanding this, regardless of, how all of us are put in situations where, regardless of how much we care about somebody, how much we love somebody, whether that's our family, our mama, our brother, our sister, somebody we was friends with for a long time, our child for some of us, regardless of any of that, if that person is wreaking havoc in your life, or being a terrible or bad influence in your life, or somebody whom you are in guardianship of, or somebody, around you, or the environment, okay, mind you, because everything with breath, everything with life, is can be influenced energetically. Like, everything carries energy. So if there's a vessel with a contaminated energy, right, that has the potential to spread like a disease, like a plague, right, the responsible thing to do would be logic over emotion, would be, okay, the logical thing to do here is to banish you from this environment, banish you away from these other energetic fields. Be the responsible, protective parent, guardian, father, mother that I am, and ensure the safety, okay, maintain and ensure the safety and security of my children who have, not been tainted. Like, their hearts are still pure. They have retained their hearts, thus retained their honor, thus retained their covenant with me, thus retained their assured protection. And I have to ensure that that protection remains. With that being said, you're banished from heaven. You're cursed, okay? And everybody who followed you, right, and rejected love and chose hatred. You get what I'm saying? Because with hatred, for example, so you sat there, and with the knowledge and intelligence that God gives us, you understood how influential the music was. And so you chose to abuse it and disregard other people's free will and abuse your power just to, just to compete with God, or because you whatever, right? So you gotta go. You gotta go. And Archangel Michael basically kind of like basically was a part of that expelling of Satan or Lucifer in, out of heaven, okay, and into the world, into earth. So God could have completely obliterated, he could have completely eliminated Lucifer, right? But because he loves him, he loves us, and he's technically God's child, you get what I'm saying, which we're spiritual, having a natural experience. You know how people say energy never dies, right? It's that energy right there. But you're still banished from the presence of God. You're banished from the blessings of God. Okay? Because you're out of divine ordinance, right? You're being defiant, okay? And you're trying to pollute others into harming themselves. Hence suicide, hence addictive, patterns and addictions and stuff like that that people fall into when they are traumatized, when they are harmed. You get what I'm saying? Like, all of this shit that it can manifest as, right? So boom. Now let's go to Adam and Eve. Let's walk down to how this continues. Okay, so now Lucifer is no longer Lucifer, he's Satan. He's banished from heaven, as well as the other angels that followed him and turned their faces away from God. So boom, they're banished out of heaven, one of the best, frequencies to dwell in. Let's think about heaven as a frequency, right? Let's think about heaven as an insurance plan, right? So boom, You are indefinitely, permanently banned from that. Okay? Now, let's go to Adam and Eve. Let's go to the Garden of Eden. The Garden of Eden, they were told not to mess with one tree. Now, when you think about a garden is abundant. A garden is filled with many things. It's filled with a variety of foods, herbs, flowers, things, things that create that generate that sense of natural luxury. Like you literally have everything you need. Like, let's think of the Garden of Eden like this. Look at the Garden of Eden as, think of every possible thing that grows from the earth. As much as you can think of that grows from the earth. Herbs, flowers, fruits, vegetables, seeds, nuts, beans, potatoes, rice, cotton, wheat, everything, corn, I already said vegetables, everything that you can possibly think of that grows from earth, naturally, organically. Now imagine all of that being, and you living in a place where all that is supplied, right? You're in need of nothing. You don't even know what the energy of lack is, because you have everything. You've been given and equipped with everything you will need for your sustainability, for your self-sufficiency, right? Now, let's go to Satan showing up as a snake and tempting Eve into eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So Satan, his whole energy is, now mind you, Eve, she's admiring something that God created, that curiosity, you get what I'm saying? And however, she still has a resistance because she's been told not to eat of that tree. But you'll have natural curiosity of anything of creation. You can have a natural curiosity of things, right? Now, you have this Decepticon. You got Satan, who has no loyalty, no honor, no desire to obey God. He's the complete embodiment of disobedience, disrespect, narcissism, abusive, sociopath, psychopath, everything evil that's manifested in our world or amongst humankind that you can think of in one being, housed in this vessel, right? Everything that's poisonous to divinity is housed in this one vessel. So with that being said, murder, we're talking about all that. He has no regard for humankind. He has no regard for anybody who has access, right, to the Most High God. He don't care. Care for what? So let's think about dark manipulation, right? Let's think about deception in itself, lying and stuff like that. So he's operating out of all of this as well as temptation. So he's embodying all of the 7 deadly sins and then some, and the many expressions of those 7 deadly sins. So meaning he talk a good game. He's he can be charming. Now, while he's housing all the 7 deadly sins and all of its expressions and manifestations, he is still gifted as one of the most powerful musicians to exist. You get what I'm saying? He still has those gifts and talents, right? And abilities, right? So, well, to an extent, because I just heard the divine tell me something else, because I heard God giveth and God taketh away. So when you think about, sidebar, when you think about the music industry, right, and these contracts, right, and God talks about vows, oaths, and contracts, and how we, have to be careful, and we're only supposed to bow to God, okay, and nothing else, right? Nothing else, as in anything extended from Satan, right? So heavy emphasis on why contracts, written word, you know what I'm saying? Contracts is such a huge thing in life in general, like with cars, houses, anything, okay, jobs, businesses, like it's marriage, anything you could think of, like contracts is a really, really big thing in our reality, right? Why? Exactly. So hence, so in the music industry, how they bind these people to contracts, and they utilize rituals and stuff like that in order to possess the vessel who has the gifts, talents, and abilities, the influence, the platform, the audience, and then try to basically invert the energy, the frequency, okay, the intentions, okay, basically break into somebody's house, and what was once a temple or a luxury home, turn that shit into a crack house where you create or you generate substances, okay, that creates addicts and further pollute the community, okay, and pull people away from God and put them on the path of death. Draw those vessels toward Satan and away from God, right? So there's that. So boom, you got Satan in the form of a snake, you know, this slithery, slimy, sneaky, mysterious, but interesting, cool, you know, also draws curiosity, type of creature. So he slithers, you know, up to Eve and everything. Now let's think about the language of a serpent energy, right? So I would imagine an energy that's charismatic, that's smooth, that's um, sneaky, slick, sly. You get what I'm saying? Um, but also still intelligent, right? Calculating, strategic. So let's bring it to urban language. What do you mean? Like, what you mean? Like, you can't eat from this tree? Like, why would he tell you that? Like, it sounds like he trying to control you. Like what he trying to say? Like that you know, you're irresponsible, or you know, you can't handle like I don't get it. Like, if you can eat from all this other stuff, like why you can't eat from this tree? Like, what's the difference? What difference does it make? It look just like that tree. Y'all know how it's different kinds of apples. It look just like that tree right there. Like, what's the difference between this fruit and that fruit? Like, I'm, you know, like, you're drawn to it for a reason. Like, I mean, it's not gonna hurt you to just take one bite from it. You know what I'm saying? Like, fuck what he talking about. Like, I'm telling you, like, it's just a fruit, just like any of these other fruits. It's just a tree, like any of these other trees. You get what I'm saying? And so let's think about yin yang energy, the feminine and the masculine energy, right? So let's look at Eve as feminine energy. Okay, the dark, the cold, the moon, the water, the earth, right? Let's think about how easy it is to pollute water, right? And let's think about masculine energy being fire and air. Let's think about how if there's a flame, you could either use like your breath to blow out to blow out a flame, but if that flame is a wildfire, you know, adding air to that would only expand that fire, okay? Or when you think about fire and how fire is consuming, right? How fire burns things up. Fire has the ability to burn areas of the earth, or burn up plants, burn down trees, okay, take out an entire rainforest and affect the oxygen of the land. You get what I'm saying? Like, so boom, where, so, and the sun energy, the enlightened, you know, exposure, you get what I'm saying? Like, a purification energy, energy that purifies. The moon is like an energy that moves you, you know, like, you know how the moon has the ability to affect the currents of the water, you know, type. So, oh God, get me through this. God, get me through this message. So it's not about blaming everything on the woman. Now, keep in mind that all of us have both masculine and feminine energy. So, if we're going to say anybody was wrong in a situation, they both was wrong, for one, because they were not operating out of the high vibrational energy of the yin yang energy, the feminine and the masculine expression. However, the root cause of everything, going left, the root cause of the defiance, the root cause of the disobedience, the root cause of the sin was Satan himself. You know how people like do like the little blame game, they like to deflect and shit like that. That's Satan's energy. He deflects, he's going to point the finger, he's going to victimize you or play victim. He's going to masquerade himself as light, masquerade himself as innocent, masquerade himself as whatever, okay? And try to guilt trip you, gaslight you, everything that we see manifest in humankind. All these same ass tired ass tactics and strategies, right? It all stemmed from Satan, right? So Adam, right? So let's think about, let's see, how can I put this? So Eve didn't tap into her masculine energy, right? To basically diffuse, to burn down whatever illusions that was being casted to her, to step into her power, that fire energy, be assertive with Satan or against Satan, against his temptation of rebellion. She didn't stand her ground. You get what I'm saying? She didn't tap into that masculine energy of discipline and being responsible, okay? And then you have Adam, who also was in an imbalanced energy. So the temptation is manifesting on behalf of both of them. So with Adam, just as the story that we know, Adam being made first, apparently. Now, we're just going off that story. I'm not saying, because there's a lot of rebuttal against who's made first, right? Because in actuality, both masculine and feminine was made at the same damn time. Okay? All right. So, so Adam, instead of tapping into his feminine energy, which would be intuition, discernment, okay, tapping into his emotions, tapping into him being grounded, being steadfast and rooted in God, rooted in truth, rooted in faith, and all of that, right? So it's like when one aspect of your energy is in balance or in disharmony, like if your feminine energy is in balance, more than likely your masculine energy is in balance. If your masculine energy is in balance, more than likely your feminine energy is in balance. So there's like a double whammy with their energies, because now his wife, the feminine, physical expression, is imbalanced via temptation, right? So it kind of put him in an energy of imbalance as well. However, with all individual power, all individuals both being geared with masculine and feminine energy. So you know how there's like separation, like to death do us part, until death do us part, as in a partner choosing the path of death, choosing one of the paths or an avenue of death, and rejecting life, rejecting the path of life, the path of truth. You get what I'm saying? And you having to depart from evil. Okay? So there's one or two things you would do. You would apply the masculine feminine energy in the upright in order to create balance, okay? Or make an attempt to create balance. If that person is not receptive to it via their free will, if they reject your divinity, you must depart from them. So he had two options. He could have just left her in that by herself. He could have, no, what he was supposed to do first was be the sound counsel in a situation in the face of unsound counsel. Okay, and he chose not to. You know what I'm saying? I feel like he attempted, but it wasn't that much effort for real. So boom, now they both fall into temptation, right? They eat of the tree of good and evil. So Satan already knowing what the outcome is going to be. You know what I'm saying? The furthest that what his assignment was, according to him, the furthest that he was going to do was prove that any of your quote unquote children or creations can be polluted. It really don't take much. Like, you sitting here doing this to me, you ban me, you da 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 da. Like, it ain't nothing. You feel me? For any of these motherfuckers to, you feel me, like, be polluted. Let me show you. Hence the story of Job, right? Job being an upright, perfect man, his faith, being very, 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 very fortified in God. Hence why Job went through all that BS, all that loss, all that grief, all that betrayal, right? He was stripped of all of his blessings that was associated with his covenant with God. You get what I'm saying? Because here's the thing. Satan's whole ploy was, the only reason he's faithful to you, he's a righteous man, yada, 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 is because you literally have given him everything. You've given him everything. Like, he doesn't know what pain and trauma is. Like, anybody who gets their ego bruised or who experiences some type of pain or trauma, blah, 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 they will turn against you. Like, they will forsake you. Right? It's almost like he's just on this unending this everlasting petition of trying to prove that it's not just him. Like, it's not just him that will turn against God, right? Let me show you. Like, let me prove it to you, whatever, right? So another message that came out in that reading where the volume was missing, when I was on the topic of Adam and Eve eating from the tree of good and evil, right? The knowledge of good and evil. So, mind you, we're past that. Y'all, one of the curses was said to be pain during childbirth and blase, 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 right? Oh, God is just giving me so much clarity, bro. I'm hearing ignorance is bliss. I'm hearing, like, you have pleasure and then you have pain, right? Another thing that was unlocked with knowledge of good and evil, opposed to just knowledge of good, was that unlocking of pain opposed to only pleasure as well, right? So I feel like that is symbolically what that means, like with the whole like childbirth and stuff like that. Because when you think about childbirth, there's a lot of illusion and confusion and lies and deception involving childbirth to cause childbirth to be more painful, right? Let's say, for example, knowledge of good would be to birth your child like in a water birth your child, while in the upright, like having your body upright, like common sense, sensible posture when birthing a child, which minimizes the pain or there's no pain at all, right? Secondly, opposed to being deceived into oh, you need to lie down on your back and work against gravity and have all these other people, have a person, a stranger whom you don't know, a whole energy field, okay, in your energy field, and we don't know nothing about that person's energy or their soul or what entities are is attached to them, touching your child, okay, and also contributing some form of trauma to the child, pulling the child. First of all, they're contributing trauma to the mother and the child. Pulling the child out of the canal, right, while the mother's lying on her back, working against gravity, increasing possibility of complications. Let's just be all the way real. Okay, slapping the child because the child ain't crying. You get what I'm saying? cutting the umbilical cord, so now there's an open womb on the child. You get what I'm saying? Opposed to leaving the placenta and the umbilical cord attached to the child, because there's still nutrients and blood and minerals and oxygen, all of that is still being filtered from the placenta to the child, so that the child can adjust to the environment that is outside of his mother's womb where it was created, and all that the child knows at the time. He was in there for 9 months. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. Something that was also in the same environment, made within the same environment, made from the same vessel, is able to remain attached to that child and birth out with the child after the baby comes out. Okay? Some, like, who bright idea, who idea you thought it was to cut the umbilical cord and then trick people into thinking this is a good thing or a celebratory thing or a milestone, or, oh, give the scissors to the father, let the father cut the umbilical cord, who's gonna cut the umbilical cord, and they hype this shit up to make it seem like it's a good thing when it's not. You're putting your child at risk. You're going against the ordinance of God. How can you say that the umbilical cord is meant to be cut when it's literally attached to the child, okay, and the placenta, and they both, the woman bursts both, all of it out? Who are you to say that God didn't do that on purpose, intentionally? With all these studies that prove, okay, the development differences of a child where the placenta and umbilical cord remains attached until everything from the placenta is drained through the umbilical cord into that child, compared to the child that gets the umbilical cord cut. Okay, the child where it gets all its nutrients and blood and everything from the placenta, their vision is better at an earlier stage. They're able to have better posture, okay, better motor movement and development. Like, all this is proven, compared to the child with the cut umbilical cord, where you're basically exposing that child to possible bacteria, okay, the possibility of disease, all type of shit, because it's a fucking open wound. And not only that, damn, you traumatize the child as soon as the child come out. Like, let's be realistic here. Let's be realistic here. So again, the knowledge of good and evil, right? When they ate from that tree, God didn't pop up and withheld their hand or knock the apple out her hand and shit. No, out of respect of who you are, right? And understanding that I gave you an aspect of me, such as discernment, okay, judgment, like, oh my goodness gracious, bro. I gave you everything so you don't have to want or need or have a desire for what I gave you, the desires of your heart. I've given you the desires of your heart, right? So, knowledge of good and evil. So now we have to know what trauma is. Just because there was a choice to obey Satan over obeying God. Do y'all see how this just replicates and repeats itself? If there's any generational curse and patterns that we should be the most concerned about, we should be concerned with the original curses, generational curses and patterns. Okay. Fortified by Satan himself. Right? Okay. So, anyway, I want to do my best to stay on topic. So, I might have to do like parts with this because I really want to stop. Oh my God. Because I can like really, really break this shit down, bro. Like, I can really break this shit down. So let's see. Do I want to go further with this? All right, so now that the tree, now let's think about consumption as well. You are what you eat. Now that they've eaten of this tree, knowledge of good and evil, right? You can even think about like Africa and stuff like that, how one of their ordinances or old ordinance of some places in Africa was for people to like be in the nude and stuff like that, and nobody's like sexually perverted, nobody's in this lustful energy, like it's just their norm. You get what I'm saying? Like, and then you have Western, like you have other cultures who rape and abuse and sexualize, or these vessels that are consumed by Satan, who rape and abuse and murder and sexually assault people. Okay, I'm saying people because to men and women, right? So the spirit, again, a manifestation of the 7 deadly sins. Everything that Satan is made of. You get what I'm saying? Now, another thing that I always say, that divine love is going to always be targeted by evil. Okay, divinity will always be targeted by evil. The wicked watcheth the righteous and seeketh to slay him. The wicked watcheth the righteous and seeketh to slay him. Lucifer watcheth God and sought to slay him. But how can you slay the creator? How can you slay he that made you? How can you slay God? How can you slay life itself? The Alpha and the Omega, right? Delusion at its finest. This is why we see manifestations of delusion in humankind to the extent, and it's like, damn, like I can't believe I'm witnessing this shit. Like, who's driving the boat? Who is this? Who is this? These are manifestations of Satan's cells. So boom, his name was changed, his cells was changed, his DNA was changed. Everything about him shifted, changed to the extreme when he turned against God. And not only that, he collected blood on his hands, right? He caused others to stumble. Do we not see this pattern? 12:12 on the clock. Do we not see this pattern with other people? People who are compromised, spiritually compromised, whether that be through envy, jealousy, any of the 7 deadly sins. Okay, whether whether the what's the word I'm looking for? The access point was trauma. Okay, some type of evil, any of the evils. Okay. Transmutation. Come as you are. Okay, ask and you shall receive. Redeem, be redeemed. You know what I'm saying? Like, repent, baptized, like so many things. The point is, go to God. Go to God. Go to God for harmony to be restored. Go to God for you to be filled with love, for you to be purified, for you to be detoxed. Okay? I'm hearing God of a second chance, right? A forgiving God, a merciful God. You think Satan is merciful? No. Satan is the complete opposite of God. And that's why there are literal people out here. So this is not the time to be playing oblivious. Okay? Because, hey, it's already been said. Like, the knowledge of good and evil is here. Okay? This is not the time to play oblivious when it comes to understanding that there are some people who are so compromised. There are some people who are children of Satan. Okay? And there's a such thing as once being a child of God and crossing over and being adopted by Satan. Why is adoption a thing? Okay? Why is that even a thing? Let's think about this. Where you are spiritual, having a natural experience. As on earth as in heaven. Hello. Right? Lord have mercy. Okay. Cain and Abel. I just I'm gonna make a statement about Cain and Abel. I'm gonna make a statement about Yeshua, And I'm going to do a part 2 and possibly more parts to this because it's a lot to unpack. Okay. And for whatever reason, intentional, I'm sure God wants me to talk about this. So let's just say, as a preview to the Cain and Abel conversation in Yeshua. So now, that spirit, or they've opened themselves up to evil, Adam and Eve, right? So now you have their children, Cain and Abel. So yeah, we really gonna have to do a part 2 because I'm gonna just start with this, but it's definitely deeper. What I will say briefly is that God is showing me how Abel was tapped into both his feminine and masculine energy, but there was still some imbalance there. And his weakness was the fact that Cain was his brother. Okay, he was family, he was a relative, like blah 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 blah, right? Now, how many of us have learned this lesson? With vessels in general. Okay, so regardless of titles and blah blah history, okay, blood, understand that everybody is a vessel. Everybody is a vehicle. Everyone's a house or a temple or a crack house. Okay? Let's look at it like that first. Let's take away all titles and stuff and look at one another as we are. First and foremost, you came into this world naked. You came into this world. You came into this world by yourself. You gonna leave by yourself? Okay. All right. Yeah. So when God in scripture talks about mothers turning against their daughters, fathers against their sons, when it talks about children obey your parents, however, parents do not provoke your children. And a lot of Christian, and listen, I don't have nothing against any religion. I respect them all. I respect the individuals that are in it and who are really facing God. You know what I'm saying? Who are really rooted in integrity and righteousness. I don't care what your religion is. Where is your heart? What kind of heart do you have? What is the condition of your heart, your character? What do you do with your intentions? How do you will your power? That's what's important here. Not if somebody is Muslim, not if somebody is a Buddhist, not if somebody is a Christian, not if somebody is Baptist, Catholic. None of that's not what matters. What matters is how do you will your power when it comes to yourself and man. Who do you serve? Who are you a child of? Are you a child of God or a child of Satan? Because understand how we choose to dress things up. Okay, think about all the houses in the world and how all these houses look different. People may use brick, people may use hay, people may use straw, people may use stone, people may use marble, people may use wood. That's besides the point. Okay, is that house fortified? Is it rooted? Is it grounded? Is it unwavering? Can it survive storms? Right? Can it provide true safety and security? Right? So let's look at it like that. Okay. So I love this. I love God so much. All right. So Cain and Abel. Now, Abel, by the time Cain made a decision to kill Abel, right? Mind you, they're walking. Cain is walking behind Abel. And he's talking to him. And, Cain is obviously being off. Like, there's something off-putting about his energy, okay? And Abel picks up on this. Like, he picks up that something is off. And then as he continues to talk to Abel, like, his tone changes, his energy changes towards Abel. And so, but instead of picking up on that energy, discerning the energy, right? That's why scripture says, before these things spring up, I shall tell you of them. You better believe there were signs to let Abel know that Cain was not fucking with him, okay? But Cain And here's the thing about being balanced in your masculine and feminine energy, okay? And understanding that you are spiritual, having a natural experience made of mind, body, and soul. Um, you know how God, let's go back to God, when it came to banishing Lucifer and more of his children out of heaven because they became bad apples, right? Um, Even though God loves Satan and it hurt him to have to do that, God hates evil. Okay? Loves you, hates evil. Loves you, hates evil. And he's gonna move accordingly. Type shit. So he had to make that head over heart decision to banish um banish these adversarial enemies, okay? Self-proclaimed enemies, in order to protect um his children or the rest of the environment, everyone else, right? So yes, it's a combination of a head over heart decision, but a head and heart, like a balanced decision. It's like head and heart combined, right? Like, I love you, but I I love you, but I have to do this, to protect others that I love, to keep the ordinances intact, okay, to maintain safety and security. You know what I'm saying? Hence jail, prison, and like, you gonna keep, if your brother is a rapist, right, and he's did that or molested or sexually assaulted your child, are you going to keep him around your child or around your family just because he's your blood brother? What sense does that make? He's a predator. He's compromised, right? So you have to banish him to protect everyone else from being polluted. So Abel was supposed to depart from Cain once he realized that he was spiritually compromised. He was supposed to depart from him. Never mind him being his brother, relative, blood, none of that. The point is, you are spiritual, having a natural experience. Good and evil, divinity and evil. That may be your brother, but your brother has went over to the dark side. Your brother is evil. And God said, depart from that. Your brother is on the path of death. Your brother is housing the energy of the seven deadly sins. He's housing the energy of Satan, which includes murder, jealousy, covetousness, apathy, hatred, envy, right? So that's what led to Abel's downfall, unfortunately. These are all these are all lessons where we can see all these different constant repetitive expressions throughout all these people in the world. We can see all these stories come across our social media and the news and stuff like that, and people's rhetoric and people using these as cautionary tales and stuff. But everything that you see being manifested in humankind was spoken about in the Word of God. Yeah, God already told us about it. God already forewarned us. He told us before these things sprang up. See, here's the thing. The things, it's springing up all around us through different people. Like, we're seeing it all around us. Okay? Get on any social media platform, you're going to see you're going to see these things spring up all around you. Did God not tell you of it before it sprung up? Is that not is that not his essence when it comes to discernment and intuition and providing ways of escape? Providing ways of escape, right? And then here comes Yeshua. Big bro, here comes Yeshua, right? What I'm seeing and I'm just gonna have to do a whole series featuring like just different people in the Bible. That's what I'm gonna have to do. I'm gonna have to do a whole series about Yeshua, about himself, okay? But this is part one. This is just like a preview, right? So now you have Yeshua, okay? So The reason why I said I'm gonna have to do a whole video for Yeshua, the breakdown of Yeshua, is because I want to address this one. I want to address this specific thing as a preview, right? But there's a lot more to break down. Now, you have Yeshua, okay? Um, Child of God, housing the Spirit of God, pure heart, right? Also endowed with gifts and skills and talents and abilities from God, and willing those gifts, abilities, talents, and skills, um, with righteousness, with integrity, okay? And not only is he helping himself, but he's a vessel of God, an instrument of God. He's co-creating with God on behalf of the Most High, okay? He's using those gifts to help mankind, to help the environment, to help the community, to add substance, to add harmony and balance. He's being responsible with his soul. He's in his purpose. Here we have somebody who is in their God-given purpose, right? Now think about the path that he had to walk in regards to envious people, people who are far from God, people who reject God, people who deny God, people who's been confused away from God. They've been deluded of God. You know what I'm saying? Like, they think about this now, because we have to acknowledge, like, influencers, people who had heavy influence amongst these people that was able to influence them away from God. Okay, because mind you, good and evil is out sporadically. It's just out there. Like, hey, this is our world. This is our reality, right? Now, evil, it's like it's literally like, I'm trying to think of an example. Let's think about uh HIV, right? A venereal disease or HIV or something like that. Let's think about the immune system. Let's think about how the bacteria or the foreign bodies or whatever literally comes in and tries to overtake your cells, overtake your T cells and your red and white blood cells. You get what I'm saying? And it's spreading itself throughout the body, and it's trying to capture and pollute and invert as much cells as possible, or kill off as many cells as possible in your body that's intended to heal you, to repair you, to all of that, right? That's literally the energy of satanic energy, and how it spreads itself like a wildfire. You get what I'm saying? Like, let's think about the rainforest. Y'all remember that scare with the forest? One of our biggest rainforests is being caught on fire, and how the reality is, if all these trees get burned down, cut down, if we have no more trees in our world, we will not, be able to maintain oxygen, right? So let's look at satanic energy like that. Let's look at it as this wildfire, or these people, who are compromised, spiritually compromised, and they band and groups and covens and the KKK and whatever you can think of a toxic, demonically infiltrated group or community, and how they're constantly recruiting, constantly forcing themselves and forcing their ways upon people, right? That is satanic energy. So, mind you, if Yeshua was sent to save, to save and all of that, to save us from sin, that means, again, there's this energy of darkness cloaking the land, cloaking the souls and the houses, the temples, the houses of others, turning temples into crack houses when we're thinking about people, right? Polluting them with in this overindulgence, of strong drink and sex and lust and hatred and murder and all this shit, right? So let's look at Yeshua like a light. He's a light. Let's look at him as a light. Let's look at him as a purifying fire. Let's look at him as all the upright, balanced, harmonious, high vibrational energy of every element that's in our being: fire, water, air, earth, and air. Right? Let's look at it like that. Feminine, masculine energy, yin yang energy. And he's in alignment. His will is to God's will. He's in alignment. Okay? So he naturally moves with this transmutational energy. He naturally exudes purification, right? Healing, right? What is the essence of healing? The essence of healing is to overturn something that was meant to cause death, or something that was meant to pollute or to make sick, to make ill. So you have illness, then you have health, right? The cure, right? Now, Yeshua is an example of somebody who's in their God-given purpose, somebody who's chosen to align with God and be a vessel of God, okay, to walk that path, to be used by God. You get what I'm saying? Like somebody who opened themselves up to the Spirit of God. That's a lot of power, right? Now, mind you, who's the target of Satan? Who is Satan's main target? God. Your spiritual having a natural experience, the Spirit of God, is Satan's main target, right? Now, mind you, we talking about delusional ass Satan, who, got swelled with power, and he let it go to his head that he was able to move people with music and shit. And so I guess he convinced himself, okay, with his with his own understanding, he convinced himself that he could be just as, if not more powerful than God. Delusional as hell. You can be more powerful than the motherfucker that, forgive me, God, for calling you that. You can be more powerful than the omnipresent, omniscient, all-knowing, all-seeing El Shaddai. You are, so you understand how how mentally ill Satan is? He's a psychopath. Like, how can you be more powerful than the one who gave you the gift and talent of music? Make it make sense. Make it make sense. Right? And I guess he called himself attributing God's power to people who are committed to God. Like God's power being reliant or dependable upon the souls, the vessels that he's created. What? It's the other way around, Satan, you dumb ass, you dumb bitch. It's the other way around, idiot. It's the other way around. The fuck? God is life. What do you mean? God is life, God is love, God is truth. Like, are you okay? Like, that's what it's giving. Like, are you okay? And I just feel like there was like angels that when he came over there with his little him trying to convince them to turn against God, I know like some of the angels looked at him like side-eye him like, are you okay? Like, do you understand like what you're saying? Like, I'm gonna go over here, okay? Like, get away from me. Oh my God, weirdo, get away. You know what I'm saying? Oh my God, bro. Like, and think about those who was infatuated with Satan because of his now, not only was Satan known as one like the greatest musician, but he was also known as like the most attractive, like, or the most physically attractive, physically appealing, very good looking. So think about those who were infatuated with his charm, like how he looked and appearances and like his gifts and his talents and his ability like to influence, like his influence. They was attracted to what he looked like, his appearance, and his influence. That's why there's such a heavy emphasis on appearances in life. Like, are people trying to compete with somebody who's truly anointed and by their appearances, materialism, their clothes, labels, brands, their hair, and blah 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 blah, money, the cars that they're driving, trying to overcompensate. Overcompensate for what? The lack of God within them. The lack of anointing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, of course, Yeshua had these people working against him. Yeah, of course, right? Of course, these people, teamed up together and lied to one another is because they was, housing a spirit of deception. They was housing a spirit of Satan. They opened themselves up to that, to some type of deadly sin. You get what I'm saying? Which, if you open yourself up to, oh my God, bro, this is crazy, dog. Mind you, Satan is the manifestation of all deadly sins and all of its extensions. So when a person becomes possessed by satanic energy, and meaning they're going to move like Satan, they're going to try to recruit others or pollute others or band with others who are also polluted or spiritually compromised, right? And so boom, that within itself is living in deception. You are a manifestation of a lie. You are far from the truth because you're far from God. You are vibrating at the vibration of death and not life. Ugh. You're vibrating at the vibration of sickness and illness, not health. Right? So you got these people that, they band together, lying to each other, just exchanging their illusions and their delusion and hatred, self-hatred, and like lack of self-esteem and low confidence or no confidence and blah 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 blah. You know what I'm saying? Like, and they come up, with these plans under the pretense that they have some type of false power. You know what I'm saying? And they just repeat the same shit that Satan did. Like, this insanity. Why is there such thing as sanity and insanity? And where is insanity stemmed from? Insanity is stemmed from Satan. He's insane. He's insane. Y'all, like, people are playing around with insanity. He's insane. He keeps doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. Through different vessels, different people, doing the same shit. Predictable as fuck. Weak as hell. A sore loser. And he's not that bright. Like, he's not that bright. Like, he may have intellect to an extent or whatever, but I believe that it's to an extent. It is not connected to the eternal, which is God. God is eternal. With God, intelligence, knowledge, discernment, power, intuition, foresight, wisdom, understanding is eternal. It is infinite. Understand. Think about when people try to block people or create delays and obstacles and stuff like that, and how that's one of the strategies of witchcraft and sorcery. So where do you think that comes from? Oh my God, bro. Where do you think that comes from? I'm just saying. Where do you think that comes from? Satan is blocked. Satan is constantly faced with obstacles. Satan is delayed. And he can never re-enter heaven. He can never step into the light of divinity again. He will never experience love again. Not real love. That's why there's so many manifestations of toxic loves or things that come close to it, which is like attachment and binding and, he out here trying to do love spells, like, so he can feel the closest thing to love again. You get what I'm saying? He's delusional. He's insane. Bitter. Okay. And this is why we see these energies, manifest in humankind. Okay. All right. So this is part 1, you guys. Ooh, that was a lot. And when I say God got me through this, and mind you, some of these messages came out through that love spell, like tearing down the accusations of love spells or the divine feminine, whatever I titled it. But some of these messages came out in that. But you know, the fact that the volume, there was silencer spells and stuff like that done, I already knew that, of course, you know, because it's part of my calling, I was gonna have to, you know, talk about it again. But I declared it, and I knew, like, the way God does things, like, He's just gonna bring it back even better, bigger and better, and that's what we're doing. Okay, so this is part one. Um, but yeah, if you're, you know, intrigued by this, um, yeah, just stay tuned, you know, because I'm gonna do more videos, you know, just kind of breaking all this down. And like I said, I may just kind of split it up between like just different individuals, you know what I'm saying, like biblically. Um, and probably spread it to like other known figures spiritually, like Orishas and um Egyptian gods and goddesses, and you know, just different expressions, right? But this is the Authentic Empress. Um, if anybody's wondering or feels like, you know, the things that I say and how I say it, how I communicate and articulate, like my way of viewing things, I will share with you that I am a Life Path 33, which is the master teacher, and you know, it's the frequency of unconditional love and authenticity, right? But I love you. I love you guys who love God, who love good, who love love, okay? And I'll see you guys next time.